A faint outline of him. He looked relieved, like someone finally clocking out after a long shift. "It doesn't take tickets," he said. "You just have to decide." "Decide what?" I demanded. The shape slowed as it aligned with the platform, stopping with impossible precision. The hum softened, settling into a low, steady vibration. A seam appeared along its side. Not a door, exactly, but a line where the darkness grew thinner. The seam opened. Cold air poured out, sharp and dry, carrying a smell I didn't recognize. Not oil. Not metal. Something empty. Inside wasn't lit, but I could see depth. Space stretching far back, farther than a subway car should allow. The woman let out a broken sob. "I'm not getting on that." The man nodded once, as if he respected that. Then he turned to me. "You shouldn't either," he said. "Not yet." "What do you mean, not yet?" He smiled again, faint and tired. "You noticed the sign changing. You questioned it. That buys you time." The hum shifted, impatient. "Buys me time for what?" I asked. "To leave," he said. "If you want to." The woman grabbed my sleeve again. "He's lying. He's part of this." "Maybe," the man said calmly. "Or maybe I'm the warning." The seam inside the thing widened. I felt a pull, not physical but mental, like the suggestion of a step forward being placed directly into my thoughts. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I hadn't had service all night, but I pulled it out anyway. The screen was on. No notifications. No apps. Just text. "Next train, unknown." I looked up. The man was already stepping inside. He didn't rush. He didn't hesitate. As the darkness swallowed him, he turned back one last time. "It stops once," he said. "After that, it only keeps going." The seam began to close. The woman screamed and ran for the stairs again, slamming into the locked gate, shaking it with everything she had. I stood frozen, heart racing, staring at the closing darkness. A choice pressed down on me, heavy, urgent. I thought about the city above us. The noise. The crowds. The way New York swallowed people every day without anyone noticing. I thought about how easy it would be to step forward and let something else decide the rest. The platform lights flickered violently. I lunged for the emergency panel near the wall, ripping it open with shaking hands. I slammed the button inside. Nothing happened. I hit it again. The lights surged back to full brightness. The hum spiked, then cut off abruptly. The seam snapped shut. The thing slid backward into the tunnel with impossible speed, vanishing into darkness without wind, without sound, without a trace. The platform went silent. The gate at the stairs unlocked with a dull click. The woman collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. I stood there, shaking, staring into the empty tunnel, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. Minutes later, a normal train arrived. Loud, bright, crowded. People poured onto the platform, annoyed and half asleep, complaining about delays. No one noticed us. No one asked why we looked the way we did. I rode home in silence, gripping the pole too tightly, replaying the man's words over and over. It stops once. I don't stay on platforms late anymore. And every time I see a sign flicker, or hear a train arrive too quietly, I move toward the stairs without waiting. Because somewhere under the city, there's a line that only runs once. And it's always on time. I tried to forget it. That was the mistake. At first, it was easy. New York helped. The city always does. Noise, crowds, constant motion. Everything layered over everything else until there's no room left to think. I went back to work, back to late nights, back to pretending the subway was just a means to an end and not something that watched you when you weren't careful. Weeks passed without incident. Then the sign started acting strange again. Not flickering, hesitating. I'd be standing on a platform during rush hour, shoulder to shoulder with strangers, when the digital board would pause mid-update. Letters frozen halfway between words. Times disappearing for just a fraction of a second longer than a glitch should allow. No one else reacted. I started timing trains without looking at the boards, counting stops, memorizing patterns. If I didn't rely on the signs, they couldn't lie to me. That worked too. For a while. Until one night, I boarded the wrong train without realizing it. It was late again. Not as late as before, but late enough that the cars weren't full. I sat near the doors, scrolling aimlessly on my phone, letting muscle memory handle the ride. The train pulled away smoothly, no delays, no weird vibrations. 3 stops in, I noticed something off. We weren't stopping. The tunnel lights blurred past faster than usual. No screeching brakes. No announcements. Just steady motion, uninterrupted. I looked around. No one seemed bothered. A man across from me nodded off with his head against the window. A woman near the end of the car tapped on her phone, earbuds in. Normal people. Normal night. I checked the route map above the door. Every station name was gone. Just a straight line. My phone buzzed. I didn't take it out right away. I already knew. When I finally looked, the screen showed a familiar gray background. No apps. No icons. Just text. You stayed too long above. My chest tightened. I stood and moved toward the doors, gripping the pole as the train swayed. This isn't my stop, I said, louder than I meant to. No one looked up. The intercom crackled. No voice came through. The train began to slow. Relief hit me so hard I nearly laughed, until I saw where we were stopping. The platform was unmarked. No tiles. No posters. Just raw concrete stretching into darkness. The lights were dim, uneven, like they'd been installed without care for comfort. The doors opened. Cold air rushed in. No one moved. I stayed where I was, heart pounding, every instinct screaming at me not to step out. The doors stayed open longer than normal. Too long. From the platform, I heard footsteps. Slow. Familiar. A figure approached the open doors, stopping just outside the light spilling from the car. I didn't need to see his face clearly to recognize him. The man from before. He looked the same. Not older. Not younger. Like time had passed everywhere except where he was. You're early, he said. I didn't choose this, I replied, my voice shaking. He nodded. You never do. The train lights flickered. The doors began to close. I backed away as the platform disappeared, the man fading back into shadow. As the train lurched forward, the normal subway map snapped back into place above the door. Station names returned. A voice crackled over the intercom, announcing the next stop like nothing had happened. People shifted, yawned, checked their phones. I got off at the next station and took the stairs 2 at a time. I don't ride trains late anymore. But sometimes, standing on a crowded platform in the middle of the day, I feel a vibration under my feet that doesn't match any schedule. And I remember what he said. It only stops once. After that, it just waits for you to stay too long. The subway platform was almost empty, which already felt wrong. It was past midnight, but this was Manhattan. Even late, there were usually a few people around, someone pacing, someone scrolling on their phone, a tired worker leaning against a pillar. Tonight, there were only 3 of us scattered across the platform, all keeping our distance like we'd silently agreed not to acknowledge each other. I stood near the middle, hands in my jacket pockets, watching the digital sign flicker above the tracks. Downtown. The air smelled like metal dust and something stale I couldn't place. A gust of wind rushed through the tunnel, pushing scraps of paper along the ground. The lights buzzed overhead, steady but loud enough to be annoying once you noticed them. Across from me, a man in a dark coat stood near the far end of the platform. He faced the tunnel, perfectly still. No phone, no earbuds, just staring straight ahead like he was waiting for something specific. Closer to the stairs, a woman sat on a bench, hunched over with her arms wrapped around herself. She hadn't moved since I arrived. I wasn't sure if she was asleep or pretending to be. The train was late. The sign flickered again. Downtown, 4 minutes. I frowned. It had gone backward. I checked my phone. No service down here, as usual. The time read 12:38 a.m. I told myself delays happened all the time. Signal issues. Track maintenance. Nothing unusual. Still, I felt that familiar subway tension, the sense that anything could happen down here and no one would notice right away. The man at the far end of the platform shifted slightly. I looked up just in time to see him step closer to the edge. Not in a reckless way. Calmly. Deliberately. He leaned forward just enough to peer down the tunnel, hands at his sides. Then he smiled. It wasn't wide or exaggerated. Just a small, satisfied curve of his mouth, like he'd finally seen what he was waiting for. I looked toward the tunnel. It was dark. No headlights. No vibration. No distant rumble. The lights above us flickered. Once. Twice. They stayed on, but the buzzing changed pitch, lower and harsher, like electricity straining to hold itself together. The woman on the bench stood up abruptly. She looked around, eyes wide, then locked onto me. "Did you hear that?" she asked. Before I could answer, the sign above the platform went blank. Every light shut off at once. The darkness was complete. Someone cursed softly. I couldn't tell who. I took a step back, my heel scraping against the concrete, heart pounding so loud I was sure the others could hear it. Then light. The overhead light snapped back on, as if nothing had happened. The sign relit. Downtown arriving. Relief washed through me so fast my knees felt weak. But the tunnel was still empty. No train. No sound. Nothing approaching. The man at the end of the platform laughed under his breath. Not loud. Not dramatic. Like he'd been amused by a private joke. "That's not right," the woman whispered. The man turned to face us for the first time. Up close, his face looked normal. Too normal. Clean-shaven. Clear eyes. Calm expression. The kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after seeing it. "They don't always announce it properly," he said. "Sometimes it just arrives." A cold knot formed in my stomach. "What arrives?" I asked. He glanced back toward the tunnel. "The last train." The sign flickered again. The time disappeared. The platform lights dimmed, just slightly, like someone turning a dial down instead of flipping a switch. From deep in the tunnel, I felt it before I heard it, a vibration under my feet, low and steady, not like a normal train. Slower. Heavier. The man stepped closer to the edge again. This time he didn't smile. "This is where you decide," he said quietly. The vibration grew stronger beneath my feet, spreading through the concrete platform like a slow pulse. It wasn't loud yet, but it was wrong. Too steady, too controlled. Normal trains announce themselves with chaos, screeching metal, wind rushing through the tunnel, a buildup you could feel in your chest. This felt measured, like something approaching on purpose. The woman beside me backed away from the edge, shaking her head. "No," she muttered. "That's not a train." The man didn't move. He stood perfectly still, toes just inches from the drop, eyes locked on the darkness ahead. The faint breeze from the tunnel lifted the hem of his coat, but he didn't react. I took another step back, my heart hammering. "If it's arriving," I said carefully, "where are the lights?" He glanced at me, almost surprised I'd spoken. "You won't see them until it's close." The sign above us flickered again. Letters tried to form, failed, then rearranged themselves. "Downtown now boarding." "No," the woman said louder. "That's not how it works." The lights dimmed further, not enough to leave us in darkness, but enough to make the platform feel deeper, longer. Shadows stretched where they shouldn't. The tunnel mouth looked wider now, as if the concrete had shifted when we weren't watching. The vibration became sound. A low hum, like a massive engine running far below the tracks. It didn't rise or fall. It didn't speed up. It stayed constant, patient. I strained to see into the tunnel. At first there was nothing. Then movement. Not headlights. Not sparks. Just a shape darker than the darkness around it, sliding forward with impossible smoothness. It felt less like a train and more like a shadow detaching itself from the tunnel walls. The woman gasped and grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight, nails biting into my sleeve. "That's not right," she whispered. "They don't sound like that. They don't look like that." The man stepped fully to the edge. "You don't have to be scared," he said calmly. It only stops once. Once for what? I asked. He didn't answer. The shape drew closer, and details began to form, not windows, not doors, but long dark panels that absorbed the light around them. The air grew colder. My breath fogged in front of me. I pulled my arm free and turned toward the stairs. We should go, I said. Right now. The woman hesitated, torn between the tunnel and the exit. Behind us, something clicked. A mechanical sound, sharp and final. I turned just in time to see the gate at the top of the stairs sliding shut on its own, metal bars locking into place with a hollow clang. The hum deepened. The man finally turned back to us, his expression unreadable. "This is the last stop that counts," he said quietly. "After this, the city doesn't keep track of you." The shadow in the tunnel surged forward. And this time it was definitely coming onto the platform. The platform lights flickered as the shape slid fully out of the tunnel. It wasn't a train. It had the length of one, the mass of one, but none of the details my brain expected. No windows. No destination signs. No graffiti layered over metal. Just a long, matte black body that seemed to swallow light instead of reflecting it. The edges weren't sharp, but they weren't rounded either, like the thing had been designed without concern for human eyes. The hum deepened until I felt it in my teeth. The woman stumbled backward, nearly losing her footing. "Open the gate," she shouted, pounding her fist against the metal bars at the stairs. "Hey, somebody open it." No one answered. The man stepped closer to the edge, close enough now that the dark surface of the thing mirrored. Chapter 5. I started walking everywhere. At first, it was a choice. After what happened on that unmarked platform, I couldn't bring myself to step onto another train. Every screech of metal, every rush of air from a tunnel made my chest tighten. Walking felt slower, safer, grounded. If my feet were on the street, I told myself, nothing could pull me somewhere I didn't agree to go. That logic didn't last. New York is not a city that likes hesitation. After a few weeks, exhaustion crept in. Late shifts, cold nights, miles that stacked up quietly until my legs burned and my thoughts drifted. I started cutting through shortcuts again, alleys, pedestrian tunnels, underground walkways I hadn't thought twice about before. That's when the signs followed me above ground. It began with reflections. In shop windows, I'd catch words that didn't belong there, white letters hovering where my face should have been. Delayed. Stand clear. Final stop. When I turned, there was nothing. Just my own tired expression staring back. I told myself it was stress. Then one night, I heard the hum again. Not loud. Not obvious. Just that low vibration beneath everything else, like a memory trying to resurface. I felt it through my boots as I crossed an empty intersection in Midtown, long after midnight. No cars. No people. The city paused in a way it rarely does. The hum grew stronger near a construction site. Orange fencing blocked off part of the sidewalk, warning signs flapping lazily in the wind. Behind it, a temporary stairwell descended into darkness. No lights. No workers. Just a hole in the city that hadn't been there the day before. A sign was zip-tied to the fence. Temporary access. Authorized personnel only. Below it, in smaller text that hadn't been there at first glance. "You've been authorized." I stood frozen, breath fogging in the cold air. I hadn't touched the subway in weeks. I hadn't waited on a platform. I hadn't looked at a schedule. But the pull was there again, not dragging me, not forcing me, just suggesting. Like a door politely held open. My phone buzzed. This time I didn't hesitate. "You can still walk away. But it gets harder each time." I backed up slowly, heart pounding, until my heel hit the curb behind me. The hum softened, almost disappointed. I turned and ran. I didn't stop until my lungs burned and my hands shook so badly I had to brace myself against a wall. When I finally looked back, the construction site was gone. Normal sidewalk. Normal street. No fence. No stairs. The city swallowed it like it had never existed. I made it home just before dawn. That morning, I called in sick for the first time in years. I slept with every light on, the curtains drawn tight. When I woke up, my dreams still felt like tunnels, long, narrow, stretching on without an end. Days passed, then weeks. Nothing happened. The hum faded. The signs stayed normal. I started to believe that whatever had been watching me had finally lost interest. Maybe I'd waited it out. Maybe the man was wrong. Then one evening I found an envelope under my door. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single card. Thick paper. Old paper. It smelled faintly of dust and metal. Printed neatly across the front. Transfer complete. On the back, a map. Not a subway map. A street map. My neighborhood, marked with clean, precise lines. One route was highlighted in red, starting at my building and ending 3 blocks away. At a subway entrance. I tore the card in half and threw it in the trash. Then I took the bag out immediately, dumping it in the bin outside so I wouldn't be tempted to dig it back out later. That night, I dreamed of platforms again. This one was different. Wider. Brighter. Crowded with people who stood perfectly still, all facing the tracks. None of them spoke. None of them moved. Their eyes were fixed forward, waiting. I was among them. I tried to step back, but my feet wouldn't move. The hum grew louder. The lights dimmed. From the tunnel, the train approached, silent, lightless, inevitable. I woke up gasping. My phone was on my chest, screen glowing softly. Final notice. You're already on the platform. I don't know how long I have. I don't know if resisting even matters anymore. All I know is this. If you live in New York long enough, you learn the city doesn't ask permission. It moves people where it wants, when it wants, and it rarely explains why. So, if you ever see a sign that doesn't look right, if a train arrives too quietly, if a shortcut feels too convenient, don't wait. Because the last train doesn't always come from below. Sometimes, it meets you exactly where you're standing.